to a video podcast today. Why? I don't know. It's easier. It saves a step. When I do a video, I don't have to just go get my audio and then add it to video, even though it doesn't take that long. I have templates now, but now I get to be on camera instead. And there were so many different things I wanted to talk about today. So one of them's obviously going to come out. I'm going to put some music over this. There is some outside noise. Someone's chopping down trees or doing something. So if you're wondering why there's a little bit of background noise, I'm trying to mask that. So, okay, let's talk about businesses and the reason these ideas come up and where they come from. So when I was searching for something in my emails, I can't remember what it was. There was something that came up about a business website that I had purchased off eBay back in 2013. And I had to really dig through the old boxes, the archive of memories in my mind to try and find the memory of that, because I literally could not remember doing that. Eventually, the concept of when I bought it, I vaguely remember. I do not remember anything else about it. And then that got me thinking about how many times I have tried to start a business, because around the same time, I'm pretty sure that's when eBay was really big and everyone was setting up all these shops on eBay and having their own stores, etc. And I remember thinking, well, I'm going to start my own business. And I ordered, remember all those colored plastic cases that you put on your iPhones? And it was probably, I don't know, it was a small iPhone. So it may have been around the iPhone 4 times. So it was around that size and around that time. And I remember buying all these cases and they were just clear ones with different colors. And I think they may have all been hard case. And I remember listing all these things onto a website and setting up this business so there'd be no postage. It was just a mail cost. And I think I was selling them for, I don't know, a couple of dollars, because there were a lot of people doing it then. And I think I only sold a handful, not enough to cover the cost. And I remember having to deal with those cases for the next 5 odd years. Hey, you want a case? You want a case? Because I was done and over that. And it was not making me the millions of dollars that I thought it would. And I think around the same time, it was when everyone was doing all this stuff on eBay and these businesses, and people were actually setting up websites. And I'm pretty sure this is before Shopify and all those other kinds of businesses. I could be wrong, but this is when people actually used to actually create websites by code. And so what they would sell is a website which was already set up, and they would already have all the categories and all the different things that you would sell in relation to that niche or that product. So it could be just animal product website. So it could be like collars and chains, and it would all be related to that. And the one that I bought was baby and kids, because obviously that's when all my kids were really little. So it was sort of fitting. Well, I can relate to all these products. I know what kids want and what parents will need because I'm right in the thick of it. And I thought it was such a great idea. So it was all set up. It had everything. It had, you know, the banners and the titles. And I can't remember where the stock came from. I'm pretty sure it was more of a drop shipment kind of setup. This was early days, not like the ways that it had sort of gotten better over the years. So it just made perfect sense to be able to buy that, because back then not many people knew how to create a website. We didn't have all the tools that we have now to create a website, and it was such a great idea. And then you paid these people that you purchased that from an annual hosting fee or whatever it was, and it was such a great idea. Sad that I can't actually remember what the name was and if I actually did anything more with it, but based on that, I'm not recalling anything. I would say I probably did nothing with it. Which brings up the question of, why do we have such these big ideas, these inspirational thoughts of creating these businesses, and then they just sort of fall flat? And that wasn't the first time that I've tried to do that. I remember back in 2001, and I think my daughter was about 3 then, and she had become really sick one weekend, and she'd been in and out of the hospital with a really high fever. They kept sending her home saying it's a viral infection. And I think there's a special rule in the hospital that if you come in 3 times within a certain period, they have to admit your child. We went in the 3rd time, I think it was over a 2-day period, and she still had a fever and was still in the waiting room. And that's when her fever was so high that she would go into a fever fit. So, what having a fit would look like, that's what she did. And because of that, they, of course, bring you in and admit you. And when they started doing the testing and things like that, they found out that she had viral encephalitis, which is a virus on the brain. Now, a few days before that, we'd been to a pretty public kids area. I think it was the science center. So she's probably exposed for lots of germs. So we don't know exactly where it came from. But because of that, because of the swelling on the brain and the fevers and the fits and everything else that was going on at the time, she lost a lot of her natural motor skills that she'd learned up to that date. So the speech was gone, the general sort of motor skill movements of walking, talking, eating, doing things like that all sort of dissipated because of the swelling of the brain. And so she was in hospital for a while, and speaking to the doctors and things like that, they said that she should recover. However, because of the damage of that virus on the brain, she may have lasting issues or things that may come up later on. So she may need to get glasses early, or she may have learning disabilities or other areas where she may struggle based on that damage that could have occurred to the brain because of the virus. And after that, because just before that, I had gone down this path of wanting to study naturopathy, and I thought that this was going to be my new career. This was my new outlook. This is where my head was. I wanted to find out as much as I could about natural therapies and, of course, learn it and help others with it. But then with my daughter being sick and I wasn't able to study or do anything like that, at the time, my father was operating his own business from home. He'd been in the motor industry for a while, and he eventually started to work for himself, being like a car broker for finance and motor vehicles. And because he was already at home, we already had sort of all the office set up. Yeah, I think it must have been one of my dad's ideas, because I don't think I would have come up with this idea. But we decided to start a business of transferring videos onto CDs, because this is when CDs were the latest thing that we used to store data on, to listen to music on, etc. And I had grown up with the VHS tapes. So when we used to record a lot of family videos, it would be on the old 2-part video system, which was the actual video recorder and the camera in your hand. And that's how you used to record things. So they were on the actual VHS videos, of course. So we moved to the smaller ones and the little camcorders and things like that. But obviously, because we were moving through and we were now on CDs, all those VHSs were going to become obsolete. So one of Dad's brilliant ideas was that, well, we need to get the information off the VHS and put it onto a CD, because this is when you could burn CDs and record information on them. So, and also with VHS videos, they don't last forever. And as you know, anyone that's ever watched a VHS video, you know what the quality's like, especially looking at them now. It's like, oh my goodness. But back then, the more you played it, the more you did it, the quality would get worse and worse. And then over time, the video would look horrible, etc., etc. So we decided to start this business called Video to Disc, and it was a little 2 in the middle, and we did the graphics and we made up flyers, and we had set up this whole business of transferring videos onto CDs, which, was old school back then. We had to actually hand out flyers. It wasn't that big on internet advertising and things like that. So it was still more of word of mouth and handing out flyers in the right places and telling people about the things that we had to offer. And we did get customers, and I even created the covers, when you can have the CDs and you put a little, there were little stickers you can get and you can put on the CD. So I would create the design of that and then we would stick them on the CD. You would end up from this video to the CD, this actual CD with its own case, because I even printed the case. So the CD had its own little sticker light. It was pretty good. And we did that for a while. And I even got interviewed. This was one of the ways we advertised as well, is on local TV. So, when you have the local news shows, I don't even know if they still do that as much, but where they come and visit you, if you have something in the local area where I lived or where we lived or whoever lived, they would then do an interview on what you do and how you do it. So we even did that, where they came and did an interview in our house, which is pretty cool. And of course, that generates customer base as well and inquiries. And we did have a website. I can't remember what it looked at. I think it must have been pretty basic. I do still have a flyer somewhere, which is funny now. You're looking at, oh my God, those graphics, jeez. But it was pretty good for back then. Like, I remember designing it. That was really cool. Even after creating all those CDs and doing all those transformations of the old VHS to the CD, even though it was fun, even though it was exciting, even though I was working from my parents' house, which is close to home, because the whole idea that why it came about is because my daughter was still in that recovery phase and still had to have a lot of pediatrician and specialist appointments and things. That's why that business started to become such a great fit, because it was so close to where I lived, my parents' house. So it just worked in with everything that I wanted it to be in that moment. And then it doesn't. Then it just stops. At some point that desire stops and we stop feeling enthused about that original idea or that inspiration we first had to create something, and the way that we are creating it and the way that we are offering it. And it's not just in the businesses, but it's in so many other things as well, whether it's the people or the things that we do in our own time or things that we want to spend our time doing or the things that we want to try and bring into our life. It changes. We get these inspirational ideas and these thoughts, and it's, should we do this thing? Should we do this thing now? Okay, let's do this thing. Ooh, this feels really good. And then it doesn't. And is that because we run out of our excitement for that thing? Or is it because there's something better next? Is it because that thing that we were doing is now going to lead us somewhere else? Or is it because we've just decided to make a different choice? And, only a short time ago, I would have thought that I had the answer to that question. I could tell you exactly what the reason was of why you ran out of steam for that idea, or why you didn't continue doing something, or why you sort of held off at that finish line and you couldn't follow all the way through. But now I know I don't have the answer. But there are things that continue to come up in your life, whether they're right now and you jump on it, or whether it's, this is a great idea and you think about it and then you try to diss it or put it down or say it's too hard, it's too big, can't be done. But then down the track, it comes back anyway. It's going to keep coming back until we complete it, until there's some sort of stage of where it becomes real. And part of the luminescent field that I talk about and the truest essence of who we are is allowing those codes of who we are, the energetic frequencies that make us up, those ones that separate from our beliefs, from our experience, from our stories, that the truest and most authentic parts of who we are. Those codes are the things that create these inspirational thoughts or these ideas. It's then up to us to follow through. Those codes that are coming up, those ideas, they need to be created. They need to be formulated into matter, into your existing reality, so that then you can access your next steps. Because when you have those those ideas and those codes coming through for you to create something, that's what's going to lead you to your next thing. And even if you choose not to listen to it and not to bring it into fruition, you're just going to take a different path, and you may just end up back exactly where that idea came up. It's going to come up again, but maybe just a little bit differently, maybe just with a slightly different feel to it. So it's like going through a maze. If you think of your energetic coding as this maze, and you're here and you want to get to over here, there's all these different ways you can go. So when you get that inspirational idea here and you're like, okay, yes, let's go do this, and you create it, well, you're going on this path. And then if you said no, well, you're going on this path, but then that path might lead you over to this place over here, but this path leads you to this place over here. So you can't get it wrong. It's just a different way to get to wherever it is you're going to be. And we can choose and think that we know what our destination is, but I really don't think that we know what it is. And I think it's open-ended. I think that it is never ending. I don't think there is an end point. I think we just continue to follow and flow through to find the experiences that we want to have while we're in this 3D human, while we're here on this earth, with the people around us, with everything that we have in our current reality, so that we can just move on to the next thing. But if we don't follow those codes that come through, those ideas, those sparks of inspiration, then we're just going to go a different way until we get there. And so when we get it like a spark of an idea and it's a business and we start and then we get bored with it, we'd probably need to look at it and to make sure that it's not us just giving up, and that our next step that is coming through because we have learned what we needed to from the experience, or we have moved through whatever we wanted to work through, what we needed to work through, or that we have now gained enough knowledge and experience for us to go to that next step. And that's the hardest part is, okay, well, I've been trying to do this thing for X amount of time and I wanted to have these results, but that's not happening. So does that mean that I have not done this process correctly because I don't have the results that I wanted? Or was it this process was enough to get me into a new space where I could create something different? Or am I just highlighting some sort of fear or some belief that is holding me back from being able to fully complete this original idea or inspiration, whatever it was that you wanted to create? The only way you're going to know that is how you tune into your thoughts and your ideas. And I know for myself, there's many times that I've started to create things and then, that's it, I'm done, burn it all down, let's start something else. But then we circle back and it's the same idea again. So to me, that's okay. You didn't stick with that thing long enough last time. There was something that held you back from completing it, or maybe you didn't have the right knowledge or the right tools or you weren't in the right space in that moment to fulfill that, but now you are, but now you've got all this new information. Now you've got all this new knowledge. And I think that we're going to consistently get these ideas, but the ones that are the most important, the ones that we really need to bring through, the ones that are going to keep coming up. They're going to keep popping up in your mind as ideas. They're still going to be permeating in your thoughts and you thinking, oh yeah, I want to do that thing. And they're the thoughts we need to listen to. They're the ones that we need to really sort of sit down with ourselves and look at those things and see, is there a way that we can bring those to life? Even if it's just in the motion of setting that up and trying to bring that through, it may lead us onto something else. For me, when I started looking back at these businesses that I've started, it's a continual thing. Like, even though it was way back in 2001 when I first started with Dad, and then it took a whole lot of not having a business that it came back again in 2013. trying to do the online business thing, and then it fell to the wayside again. And it wasn't until the last few years where it's really come back, but it's come back with a vengeance now. And it was always there, but I wasn't ready, or maybe I made a different choice in different moments along those initial stages that led me to where I am now, to be in a space where I am able to fully bring through all these ideas and all these creative things that I really want to create within my reality. And right now there's a lot, because I think once you start removing some of that dirt and grime and those old beliefs and shadows and things from your mind, once they start sort of dissipating, there's a lot more creative ideas and inspirational thoughts that come through for you to start working on. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes it is overwhelming when you do have so many ideas and it's like, oh my goodness, I need to do all these things. But, we can only do so much physically where we're at. So we just need to prioritize and see and allow what the process is, what the process needs to be able to bring those into our reality and try and find a way for them to become something that we're experiencing. And I was talking to someone about this the other day. It's, when do you stop? If you get to a point where, okay, I've had all these positions, these ideas through my life where I wanted to create my business and I've been doing it for a while and I haven't got the results I want, when do we stop? When do we say, nope, that's enough, we're done, let's try something else? Or do we think, okay, maybe I haven't tried hard enough, maybe I need to do more, maybe there's something new I need to learn? How do we know? How do we determine between when is enough and when is putting all our effort in and still not getting the results enough for us to say, stop, let's do something else? And I think that really comes down to how in tune we are with ourselves and the essence of who we are and the things that we really want to achieve and really what we want to feel. Are there reasons that we are trying to build a certain business or do a certain thing driven from a fear or a different type of belief, or because you're trying to prove something to yourself or to someone else? I think it's where the energy of the drive of that thing that you're doing comes from. Is it because you have decided within yourself that this is something that feels good, this is something that you love, this is something that you want to do? Or is it, oh, because I want to make all this money, oh, I'm going to show my family that I told them that I was going to make money doing this thing and now I'm going to do it? That depends where the thought came from. Is it coming from a pure desire, a pure inspirational thought, or is it coming from fear or a belief or something else? Only you can answer that. Only you can sort of tap into that and really sort of think about, why am I doing this? So when you are in those moments and you are thinking of quitting or giving up, or you want to move on to something else, or you want to try something different, where's it coming from? Why do I feel like that? Is that coming from a genuine place of who I am? Is this my next step? Does this feel good? And there's many different ways we can tune into that. And you're going to know your own self in the best way of how that feels for you and where you think in that moment that idea or that thought is coming from. And if you are being truly honest with yourself, you're going to receive the right intuition. And if you do decide to can an idea or stop pursuing a certain business idea or thought or an expression of yourself, you're going to know that you're still going to get it right. You may just choose a different path, but you'll still be going in the right direction of wherever it is that you're going. So it's not like, oh my God, I should not have chosen that. You can't have the regret, because as long as you're open to listening, receiving, and allowing the information to come through based on where you are at in that moment, you're always going to make the right choice. So don't ever go back and think, oh, I should have kept going with that idea. Like, imagine if I kept going back in 2013 with that idea of that business or those drop shipping I was doing. Like, I could have learned more. I could have become better. I could be like a expert in teaching all that now, but I didn't. But it's pointless for me to say, well, I should have continued down that route instead of choosing something else. That's not going to do me any favors. All we need to do is trust in what we're doing right now and know that every experience that we have is just allowing us to grow more and more and more into whatever our next thing is. And we can't get it wrong. We can't stuff it up. And everything's just going to work out perfectly exactly as it needs to. So if you are thinking about giving up, or you're in that initial process stage of thinking of a new idea, go for it. Just check in and find out if that's what you really want to do right now. And if it is, everything you need is just going to fall into place exactly as it needs to in the right time sequence. I'll see you next week.